amazing expert here on Social Media Day 2020. And this lady I've known here
2022.
For 2022. Sorry. Yes. Come on, Scott.
Flashback?
I did have a flashback. I was just talking to somebody earlier about 2020 on a previous story, but that's funny. Let's not go back. Let's not
go back. I don't want to go back to 2020.
No, me either. But that's the thing, guys and gals, if you're out there watching and listening to this, amazing lady who knows her business. She is the chief bottle washer, CEO of Podetize.com, and absolutely just a former Inc. and entrepreneur.com columnist. This lady is speaking all the time about branding and marketing. She was one of the first folks I reached out to when we started planning Social Media Day 2022. And so we are honored to have us join us from California, the lovely, the awesome, and the intelligent Miss Tracy Hazzard. How's it going, Tracy? How you doing?
It's going so good. I'm so glad you do this every year, because I have to tell you that amidst all of the days, because every time I turn around, it's like podcast day, it's social media day, but you are so dedicated to it. And I love it because you remind me how important it is to really think about social media in isolation. What's going on? What does it look like year over year? It kind of gets that mindset going. And it really got me thinking when you invited me here.
Yeah. I almost didn't do it. I was sitting here. I'm like, the thing about working from home is when I used to work at the office, I had one of the big, 16-month calendars on it. And I had stuff, starred and circled so I could see it every day. Well, here at home, I don't have a big calendar on the wall. So I'm like, oh crap, it's social media day. This is like Friday.
It snuck up on me.
And I'm like, oh, am I gonna do something? No, it's like, no, I need to do something. It won't take that much. So I reached out, the 12 people, and I was like, all 12 like, yes. I'm like, okay, guess we're doing this. Let's do it then. Whatever. So, but that's the thing is a lot of people, I've had these conversations here when you guys have been in town and we talk on a regular basis. So many people are overwhelmed by the idea of it being a big social media being so big to the masses. And you've got a really different approach that you like talking about in today's crazy world of how your approach is different than the one to the masses. It's more so really like what the one-on-one conversations, right, Tracy?
Yeah, because look, what we all want to do is reach somebody, right? That's why we're broadcasting out there, whether we're podcasting, video casting, social media posting, right? All of those things are broadcasting from a one to many, from a large, to a large, broad audience, in the hopes that we're going to reduce it to a one-to-one conversation. Someone who's going to buy something from us, have a further conversation, become a coaching client, become a consultant, whatever it is that you're selling and looking for. That's what you're trying to do from a business model. Not necessarily, we have totally different reasons from personal, political, like all of the other reasons you might be on social media. That's not what I'm talking about. But from a business perspective, when we look at social media, our point is to get to a conversation with someone, right? Get them to be aware of your message and invite that conversation. So it's getting harder and harder to do that one-to-many conversation because it's so noisy, because everybody's a social media influencer, and everybody and their brother and sister are their social media influencers, it seems nowadays. And so, and to be honest with you, social media is actually an ego-driven media type. So if it's driven by ego, they want to be noticed as much as you want to connect with them. Mm-hmm. So how can we tap into that faster and almost skip the broadcasting? That's kind of how I'm thinking about it this year, is I'm like, what can I do to make that conversation happen faster without doing more posting? More just doesn't seem to be working.
Mm-hmm. Well, because after a while, more, a lot of times people get so accustomed to it and it just kind of fade. Because it's that, I don't want to say, look at me, or hey, everybody. And you're right, when people want more. So, well, I'm not everybody. I'm Scott. I'm Tracy. I'm Tom. I'm Whitney. How are these affecting me individually? And that many to get people to follow you a lot of times. But then you're talking about bringing it back to just, hey, let's have individual content. Almost kind of how Gary Vee started off with Twitter back in the day. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, because it was different. It was smaller, right? And so as we get larger, this is something that we find is that as influencers get larger, as podcasters get more listeners, right? And as we get to that tipping 1 million or tipping 500,000, depending on the media type, as we tip over that point, the community engagement just drops and the connection pace drops. And there are two reasons for it. One is because now it's your business to do it. So your heart isn't really in it from the influencer standpoint. Like, it's become a machine. And the second, and it comes across, people know. And the second part of it is that your listeners know you're always going to be posting, you're always going to be there. So they actually pay attention less. So when we look at that from a social media perspective, we find less engagement with influencers than we do with micro influencers or even nano influencers who maybe have a community of 1,000 or 10,000. They have higher engagement rates. So the average on social media, and this is the average, or I would say the average that they're touting as a good result, is if you get 1% engagement on your posts. And that's a week's worth of posts to get 1 week engagement. It used to be like every single post, you should get 1%. No, it should be now it's like if you post for a week and you post consistently and constantly for that week, if you got 1% engagement, that's great. Well, the only choice you have is to add more listeners, add more followers, add more fans, right? The only choice you have, because you can't increase that number by posting more. They'll pay attention less. So it's a really big problem. And then when we compound that with fake followers, when we don't even know who's real in the audience anymore. Ariana Grande came out and said she had 70 million fake followers on Instagram. Elon Musk was just reported as having 23% fake followers on Twitter. A large audience is not real.
No, that's so true. We have a mutual friend that we know who was touting his Instagram a while back. And I'm like, well, man, for me, having 1 million, teenagers in Thailand follow me doesn't make any sense for my business.
No, it doesn't.
But that's what happens. A lot of these things get caught up in these bots or they list builders that, hey, I can get you 10,000 followers. Well, they're not the right type of client that you need. And it's kind of like, do you want to slap together just a bunch of fake bricks without any mold? And that deepening conversation is like that concrete between the bricks. You want to build it one brick, almost kind of one conversation, one relationship at a time these days, more so, right?
Well, so I was talking to Alex Sanfilippo of Podmatch, and I just adore him. He's my new, I don't know, we have Mindshare going on or something. And so we've had multiple conversations last week, and we were talking about this in the podcast that I was recording with him about this idea of what if I personally invited you to listen to my podcast or follow me on Instagram? What if I personally did that with 5 people a day? And one of those people actually did it, listened to an episode. I know my Binge Factor of podcastism is really great if you're a podcaster. So if I invited 5 existing podcasters and one of them chose to listen, I know that they're not going to stop at 1. I have over 150, but they'll probably consume 10. If that happened, if every day I got that, I'd have over 3,650 listens from just them going to 10 episodes. 36,500 if they did 100 episodes. And I have people binge on my show all the time. So thinking about the compounding value of actually doing that. And because I personally reached out and didn't send the stock message, but I said, I really think you're going to benefit from this one among the 150 that I have, because I see you posting about this problem. And so I think this one is going to benefit you the most. Aren't you going to listen? You're going to check it out because it feels really personal. It feels like a recommendation just for me. And that fed my ego and it fed my need. And I'm likely to engage and follow up because of that. So I think it's a brilliant model. It's time consuming. And that's what we want to avoid. But I think about all the time that we spend crafting social media plans, getting our posting schedules, training my team to help me through this. I spend an inordinate amount of time dealing with social media that is not effective at all.
Right. Well, let's think about this. I'm just doing some quick numbers. If you had a database or had a list, let's just say an email list of 20,000, and you're getting a 1% response rate, like you said, a 1% engagement rate, that's what, 200 people?
200 people, yeah.
And that would be sending out an email once a week, stuff like that, posting at least once a week. Well, your whole aspect of that, of just say, hey, inviting 5 people, you're going to get at least 1 out of 5 because it is going to be that's a 20% engagement rate. If you do that, you're going to add 300, as you said, 365 people. If you did that daily, you'll have a much more consistent database, consistent followers, consistent interactions, people really truly listening to what you're saying, true followers versus the bot relationships.
And what we're not realizing is that there's also the recommendation or the referral wave that comes from doing that. So those people, because I personally asked them to be on it, they feel obligated to return the favor and spread the word, right? They're paying it forward. So it's actually going to compound on that, because when they then personally recommend it to a friend, the friend is going to listen. And so that's really where I look at it as, it's not just I got one new follower this week, or I got one new this, it just doesn't work like that. It's actually probably 10. You just don't, by the end of the year, that one person is 10. And so I just love the thinking of that, though, in the model is, can I do that better in my posting? Can I do that better with everything that I do, is make that feel so that when you receive the message, you take something personal away. So can I write differently when I post? And so here's what I see is like, now we're inundated with formulaic posts. And my clients ask me for it. Like it drives me crazy because I don't want to do it, but I actually had to do it. I was like, put hook line here. Put hashtags here, put 3 to 5. Like I had to lay it out for them, the structure of a good post. And so I know they're going to follow it too strictly. And when they do, everybody's is going to look the same. And so I see those posts where they're like four things long, 4 paragraphs. And at the bottom, they're all the hashtags and they're all spread out and they got the emojis in them. And, I look at that and I think, okay, so they're following Gary Vee's model is really what they're doing, right? They're following Gary Vee's model, but they don't have Gary Vee's personality. That's the first problem. Yeah, the first problem right there. The second problem is that they actually don't have the marketing experience that he and his team does of understanding how that messaging needs to work. They understand, maybe get the components of it, but they don't understand how that needs to lead to do something. And they look at it in isolation. This is the way this one post is. When I look at it, we're building an entire library of posts over time, and it's layering. And so I think of the same thing as when I'm building a relationship, it's layering. Like we get to know each other on a superficial level, and then we're going to move a little bit deeper, and I'm going to give you more. I've got to do that as you become my follower and fan. I've got to pull you through that as well. And I have to be authentically me in that process. And so we forget that when we go through this sort of mechanics of social media posting, and we forget the personal.
Totally. So true. And it made me think of somebody who we used to rely on, remember the Facebook Messenger bots?
Yep.
You know what I mean? How unoriginal a lot of them were. Yep. And you could tell right off the bat, second comment, this is not the person I'm supposed to be talking to. And it just turned you off the whole conversation because it was designed to get you to sell something or make an appointment, something. And I get some people are busy and stuff like that, but it took away those, I think, really lessened relationships than what they did in deepening them in a lot of cases. Right.
Right. And, this is the thing. It's like, there's lots of reasons to use bots. Like we use bots to make the connection. Like, so we might use a LinkedIn, bot type program to make a connection to somebody, but we already pre-selected the list. We didn't just buy a list of all podcasters out there. We carved out a list of podcasters who have X, Y, and Z characteristics, who we think are going to benefit most from my podcast, our conversation, getting to know us, having the tips. We can make them more successful. So we truly believe we've got the right list to begin with. We just use the bot to speed up the connection process, because me sitting there reaching out to 100 a day is a waste of time. Now, if half of those reach back to us, which is about our rate, now we can go to having conversations. Now we can go find out what they want more on. And that's a pace at which we sort of look at that and say, what can we serve? How can we serve them more? They decided to take our connection. That's sacred, right? They decided to accept us. Let's see why. And if we start to understand why, we can craft better connections, better relationships, and make that go deeper. So this is what I'm thinking overall, is not just doing that in the messenger side and the DM side of everything, but I'm also looking at it in terms of like how I tag. I hate it when somebody tags 100 people on a post. Like, that's ridiculous. It's one thing if there's an article, like we were just featured in Breakthrough Author Magazine. And so were 5 other people who we know. So of course we tagged everybody in our post because we were so proud to be a part of that. But that's different. Like, that's not mass tagging people to like, hey, look at me, right? That's different. And so when we tag, we know we have a greater opportunity for engagement. And so we tag in the post and in the comments a lot of times. And or sometimes we'll do one or the other, see how we can increase the engagement and tell them why we're tagging them. That's the other part. It's like if you forget to tell them why they're being tagged, they're like, this seems spammy. Right. And then they stop watching your stuff. They stop looking. So we do that. We make recommendations through our commenting. So we're inviting people to follow our model for how we do it. So we even do it with our own posts. So it's like I write an article and sometimes I'll tag Tom, my own partner, and say, hey, I think you should share this with so-and-so. Or I think this would benefit this type of person. Do you know anyone? Like asking him those questions because I can't get him to engage in social media with me otherwise, because, he sees me all the time, right? So he's not really paying attention to my posts.
Just as long as you're not sitting at the dinner table or on the couch doing this at the same time.
Right, exactly. Like, nah, we don't do that. Totally different times. But that's the thing is like, if I don't tag him or I don't recommend something to him or I don't share it with him in that way, he won't actually engage with it because he's not paying attention to me because he's a part of my life. So he should know what I'm posting. He should know what it's about. But if it's something that I want him to take action on, I need to ask him to do it. And we're not asking enough there. So we're not using that tagging and recommending within our own posts. Sometimes we do it in the DM, and that's great that we're doing it in direct message, but sometimes that's not the right place for it. We want other people to see us doing it, so they'll do the same.
Mm-hmm. That's so huge. I love that because you'll get more honest feedback from those folks, which leads to when you're asking true questions, what can I do better for you? And one of the, or what's an issue they're dealing with? Well, if they're sharing it with you, it's probably 20 others that have that same issue, which leads to better content, better communication, but also really touching base more because now your audience is still like, well, she's talking to me now with this post, or she's really truly talking about me. I was thinking that I just wasn't brave enough to ask it to Tracy,
Yeah, right. And so, here's the thing. It's like when I do this, I do it in a way that is genuine. So we're planning our posts out at least 2 weeks in advance, probably more. So because we are recording our podcast, our video cast so far in advance that we know what's coming up a month from now. And so the only thing that I can do is wait until it posts. So I have a routine where 15 minutes, that's all it takes me. 15 minutes every morning or evening. I switch it off, whichever I have more time for. We had lots of camp carpools. Today was the first day of a new week of camps. So today wasn't a great day to do it in the morning, but tonight I'll do it. It'll be perfect for that. So 15 minutes I spend and I go through my own posts, because I don't know what posted today because it was scheduled through, Buffer, Meet Edgar, whatever you guys are using, right? We're scheduling them. It's efficient that way. And because my team prepped most of them, so while I may have seen them, it might have been 30 days ago. So I need to make sure it's still relevant. Everything's still working. I also need to correct anything that might be wrong. Like sometimes the tag doesn't work in the post and you have to go and edit it and retag it. So I'm going to go and I spend 15 minutes in all my social media, just doing that really quickly. And while I'm there, I go, you know what? I just had this conversation with this client in our strategy session with this past week. And I forgot to mention that this was a good episode. And, because it hadn't posted yet, I might tag that client and say, hey, when we were talking last week about this strategy, I forgot that this one was coming up. Here it is. They're going to go listen. That's just personal invitation to go listen. It tied to exactly what they're looking for in the world and want right now. And I knew that, but it's also making other people aware of how much I care about my clients. So it is self-serving and business serving, but it's also giving and caring. And that's really the important part. That's who I want to be authentically in the world, is be out there giving and caring. And so by doing this on a one-on-one basis, I'm really creating that at a micro level, but it's expanding into this massive level of people going, wow, look at what she does. She's the CEO of a company and she still has time for that. She still does that.
Well, but it's also too that you have it as a priority.
It's a priority.
And a lot of people out there use their social media posting as I'll get to it whenever. Right. And it's the same thing. We take the marketing first approach every day. It's like, hey, what are we doing every day to market, whether it's a podcast episode or a video webinar or social media? what are we doing each day to get the message out what we're doing? And that's helped us grow to where we're at today. And you just said the same thing. Hey, we do this 15, 20, 30 minutes a day just to stay on top of things. And it's not that much work when you do it on a daily basis, right?
Right. And I even do it on the weekend because, there's downtime on the weekend or whatever. I do it Sunday nights is my favorite time. And so if I missed a day or did anything, I will catch up on Sunday and go through it. And it's really easy to go back and check your posts and see what you've done and see what's going on there. But, that's the other thing is that I don't want it to go too long as someone's direct messaging me. So that's also why I have the discipline of doing it every single day, because if you're non-existent in your direct messaging. And I have to admit, I am absolutely non-existent in Facebook Messenger because I took the app off my phone because it was so much junk from other people that I said, I'm done with Facebook Messenger. So I literally just turn it off and say I'm not there so that people start to realize, oh, you're not there. But on LinkedIn, on Instagram, I want to make sure that I'm answering them.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I say on my Twitter profile, I actually say there that if you actually want to reach me, go to my LinkedIn. I say it in my Twitter profile. So I'm trying to get to you, like to send you to the two places I will be. And that way it helps.
One of the things I love about this conversation is I'm thinking here as about a tool that you guys told me about over a year ago, getemails.com, and how it tracks IPs coming to your different websites and people coming for the first time, stuff like that. And that is a tool that I really love. And I use that opportunity when somebody comes to a website for the first time of being that fresh, organic approach. Hey, saw that you stopped by. What can I do to help you?
Right.
You know what I mean? Hey, thanks for checking out this podcast episode.
The thing is most people use the tool, then they throw everything into a very generic email list and they aren't really doing something personal. And so we're actually looking at email the same way that we're looking at social media. Like, how can we really make it personal? And what we've been looking at is that same thing. It's like there are people who are stopping by. Now, if those people are stopping by and they spent 2 seconds there, it's a really different thing than if they spent 2 minutes there. So 20 minutes there, they watched a video, they did something, right? Like, how do we characterize them based on what their actually actions they're taking? And how do we figure out what their stage is? So how can we screen them against? So what we do is we take that list that comes through Get Emails and we screen it against our list of podcasters, because there's 2.5 million podcasts out there. Their email addresses are listed on the internet. And while I may be logged into my Google under a different email address, so they don't always match, but if there is a match there, I want to know that that person's already a podcaster, because that's going to give me a different approach to how to talk to them than if they're brand new to this podcasting thing. And so thinking about how I'm using that list, and then also thinking about someone who's brand new to this, just launched their podcast. How do I send them a personal message congratulating them? How do we get personal with 1,000 clients? Like, that's also hard enough. It's like, I've been trying to pay attention when everybody hits their anniversary. Like, you got to build systems and processes into the thing. So, but at the end of the day, it needs to become this more understanding that I'm creating this personal connection to you. And so when I say congratulations, it needs to land, right?
Instead of just the automatic LinkedIn anniversary or update and just doing the automatic congratulations thing that auto-populates that. You got to do something more.
So we kind of have a company policy. We don't do birthdays and we don't do holidays, with very few exceptions. There are a few holidays that we go out there, but we don't make gratuitous holiday posts. We just don't do it as a company. And now that being said, that, I sent personal messages to each of my mom employees for Mother's Day, my father employees for Father's Day, right? Like, we send personal messages to all of them so they feel recognized on those things. But it's not something that we're going to go and just post a happy Mother's Day and put that out there. Now, Thanksgiving's different. Thanksgiving is a chance for us to be grateful. And so that's the one holiday, the one American holiday that we post gratefulness message out, but that's what it is. It's just a reminder to be grateful. And so that's kind of how we look at it. We also look at that as that's not the role of a company, right? The holiday is for my family. The holiday, I won't want my employees worrying about it. I want them to take off. I want Juneteenth to be a holiday, like, and them to enjoy it. And they did, right? They all took off. They had picnics. They told me about it later. Fantastic. I'm so glad that, that those things happen, but I don't need to post about that. I don't have a personal connection and history to that. So it doesn't make sense for me and my clients or for me to present that to my clients in that way. It's not genuine.
What else are no-nos on the social media that you don't post about, that you like, don't do this? I mean, obviously I'm a big thing of religion and politics, but So, yeah. So, I mean, my dad taught me that if you want to make friends, do not talk about religion and politics at dinner. So if you wouldn't talk about it at dinner, then don't talk about it on social media. And, look, I mean, if you wanted to know my viewpoint on the world, I think it's fairly easy to have a conversation with me and learn about that. But it is not something that I'm going to push that out to someone else. It's not who I am. It's just not my personality. And, what I share, what I collect, is it a reflection on my record on that? Yeah, absolutely. So if you wanted to dig in and find that out, you could see where I collect articles in the Flipboard, right? I collect articles and I put them in all sorts of places. And it's like collecting recipes or something. You can tell I'm not a vegan, right? By looking at my recipe collection, right? I'm definitely not a vegan, but that's okay. Right? Like, if you get to know me well enough, I'm comfortable with that because I'm comfortable with who I am as a human being. And I'm comfortable with my view on politics, religion, everything else. And I'm comfortable having a debate about it too. So like, I'm not going to get overheated. It's just not who I am. Right. Like, so when you know that, that's great. But if you're looking, like, I get kind of shocked by the amount of people who don't mind wearing that out on their sleeve and maybe annoying their clients in the process. Okay, I don't think there's not a place. Social media for me is a business service. It's a business thing we do. So if it's a business thing, it just doesn't belong there. The company is not me. Our good friend Aaron Young, right? You are not the company is not you, right? Like, from a legal perspective, yep. That's how I look at the whole thing. I want this company to live on beyond me. That means it can't have my personal belief system in it too. Now, is it founded on ethics? Is it founded on principles? Yes. But again, those are generalized and not personal. I love it. Taking a fresh approach to social media in the 2022 timeframe of it. It's actually more about the individual, the conversations, deepening those versus going wider. Yeah. Going narrow and deep versus deeper, not wider. Like
deeper, not wider, right? Exactly. Niching down in a way, right? If you think about it that way. And that's where we've always been successful. And so, this is the thing. Like, if I can say anything to those of you who haven't started out on social media yet, or if you're like, you're hearing this social media day and you're like, I still hate Instagram, I still can't get into it, right? Start with one. Start with one person that you're speaking to on your social media. Like, who is this one person that you want to connect with? What is this one platform you want to participate in? Like, start with one. It's actually going to be easier to dive into it, figure it out, and get it working. That's exactly how we start podcasts. We start podcasts with this visualization of my one listener. And then you'll grow 10 listeners next, right? Just like David Letterman.
Amen to that. Good stuff. Tracy, what's the best way for our folks watching this, listening to this, to connect with you? LinkedIn, or what's the best?
So because this is social media day, the best social platform is LinkedIn. If you want to message me directly, friend me over there. That is the place where I review all of that personally. And, Podetize. If you want to know more about podcasting, come to Podetize. Come check us out. See what we're doing.
Amen to that. I'm a huge fan. Tracy, thank you so much for showing up here on Social Media Day 2022. And as always, delivering amazing content, amazing insights. And look forward to seeing you here before too long as well.
Sounds really good. I can't wait. Take care, Scott.